Okay, let's be real. Trying to figure out the stock market these days, it feels like you're getting 1,000 different signals all at once, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to hand you a new map, a way to clearly see the forces that are actually shaping your investments. So, let's dive right in. I mean, one day the market's flying high. The next, it's tanking because of one tiny piece of data. It's so easy to get completely lost in that fog of daily noise. But here's the thing. What if all that confusion isn't random at all? What if it's just about the way you're looking at it? Look, this isn't about having some magic crystal ball. Nobody can predict the future. It's about understanding that different things move the market over different time frames. And the real secret, the key to clarity, is knowing which lens to use at the right time. Are we looking at the short term, the midterm, or the long term? So, here's the game plan. First, we'll break down the market's 3 lenses. Then we'll look at the short term, which is all about the Fed and inflation. After that, the midterm, think AI and supply chains. Then the long term, the future of everything. And finally, we'll talk about the tipping point and what catalysts could be next. All right, first up, the market's 3 lenses. And the subtitle here really says it all, from a magnifying glass to a telescope. Just think about it like that. We're going to start with a magnifying glass to see what's right in front of us, then grab some binoculars to see what's coming up, and finally, pull out the telescope to see way, way out into the future. So, here's how it breaks down. The magnifying glass. That's for right now the next 3 months. It's all about Fed meetings, inflation reports, that kind of stuff. Then you grab the binoculars. This gives you a view of the next 3 months out to 2 years. Here you start to see bigger things, like the whole AI supercycle, and finally, the telescope. This is for 3+ years out, for the huge, game-changing trends like the green energy transition. Each lens gives you a totally different but equally important piece of the puzzle. Okay, let's grab that magnifying glass first. Section 2, the short term, Fed and inflation. We're about to figure out what's driving the market right now. You know, if you look at the market day to day, it is absolutely obsessed with 2 things: what the Fed is going to do next and what the latest inflation report says. I mean, the whole reason we've seen such a rally is this hope that the Fed is going to keep cutting rates. But, and this is a big but, that hope is super fragile. Every single inflation number that comes out, you hear about the CPI, right? Consumer prices, or the PCE, which is the one the Fed really watches. Every single one is put under a microscope, because that's what's going to decide what the Fed actually does.
So this really puts the market at a fork in the road. Path number 1 is the dream scenario, the soft landing. That's where inflation chills out, but the economy keeps chugging along just fine. If that happens, it's pretty much a green light for growth stocks. Tech, communication services. But path number 2 is the sticky inflation scenario. That's the nightmare where prices just refuse to come down, or even worse, start climbing again. In that world, the Fed has to stay aggressive and investors run for cover in safer defensive sectors like healthcare and consumer staples. All right, let's put that magnifying glass away for a second and grab our binoculars. Section 3 is the midterm, AI and supply chains. Now we're looking out a bit further, past the daily chatter over the next 2 years or so. And when you look out over this time frame, the first thing you see is, well, you can't miss it, the AI supercycle. And listen, we are way past the hype phase now. This is a massive, massive wave of investment. We're talking staggering amounts of capital being poured into artificial intelligence. And the conversation is changing. The market is basically saying, okay, we believe in the promise of AI, now show us the money, show us the profits. So how do you even think about investing in this? Well, you can look at the whole stack. At the very bottom, you've got the semiconductor companies. They're making the chips, the actual hardware. Then you've got the cloud computing giants. They're building the massive infrastructure that all this runs on. And then at the top, you have the software companies, the ones actually building the applications that you and I will end up using. Now, the other huge trend in this midterm view is something called deglobalization. And this is a really big deal because it's basically the reversal of a trend that's been going on for decades. Geopolitical tensions are forcing companies to completely rethink their global supply chains. They're starting to bring manufacturing back home, that's reshoring, or moving it to nearby countries or friendly nations. And this shift is creating a brand new playbook with a whole new set of winners and losers.
So what does that mean for investors? Well, on the one hand, you've got clear opportunities. Think about industrial and manufacturing companies that are going to benefit from all this new domestic investment, or the robotics and automation companies that make it possible to bring those factories home. But there's another side to this coin. It's also a huge warning sign. You really have to scrutinize any company that's heavily dependent on a supply chain that could get disrupted.
Okay, time for the final lens switch. Let's put down the binoculars and pick up the telescope. This is section 4, the long term, the future of everything. We're talking about the huge secular trends that are going to shape the next decade and beyond.
The first megatrends you see with the telescope is the green energy transition, and it is almost impossible to overstate how massive this is. We're not just talking about a few solar panels here and there. We're talking about a complete, top-to-bottom reinvention of the world's entire capital stock for energy. That means trillions of dollars in sustained investment flowing into renewables, modernizing the grid, you name it. This is a story that's going to unfold for decades. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you start to see how these different lenses connect. Think about it. That AI boom we saw with our binoculars, all those data centers require an absolutely insane amount of electricity. And that huge energy demand is creating even more pressure to build out new, clean power sources. It's this incredible feedback loop where the midterm trend is directly accelerating the long-term one.
Okay, the other giant long-term force reshaping our world is all about people, demographics, and technology. You've got these two powerful currents moving at the same time. On one side, you have aging populations in developed nations. That completely changes the game for healthcare and the workforce. And on the other side, crashing right into it, you have the rise of AI, which is fundamentally rewriting the rules of what a job even is.
So when you put those two forces together, some pretty clear investment themes emerge. An aging population, that means a long-term need for better healthcare and medtech. A shortage of workers, that points directly to more automation and robotics. A workforce whose jobs are changing, that creates a huge need for new education technology to help people learn new skills.
Okay, so we've used the magnifying glass for the right now. We've used the binoculars for the next couple of years. And we've used the telescope for the decade ahead. We've built our map. Now it's time for the final critical piece. Section 5, the tipping point. Where does the market go from here?
Right now, the market is basically in a massive tug-of-war. On the one side, you've got the bulls pulling for the market to go higher. They're betting on continued disinflation, a friendly Fed, blockbuster AI earnings, that perfect soft landing, and maybe some geopolitical calm. But on the other side, you have the bears, pulling just as hard. They see the potential for inflation to come roaring back, for those AI earnings to miss expectations, for a hard landing recession, and for global conflicts to get worse. It's a real battle.
And really, it all boils down to this single image. The market is standing at record highs, but it feels like it's walking a tightrope. On one side, there's a genuinely positive story to tell. But on the other, there are some very, very real risks just bubbling under the surface. It's an incredibly delicate balance.
So we're not going to sit here and give you a prediction. That was never the point. The point was to give you the map, to give you the different lenses so you can see the whole landscape for yourself. Now you can see the short-term pressures, the midterm currents, and the deep long-term tides. So I'll leave you with the final question, and it's for you to answer. Now that you have the map, and you can see all the different paths, which direction do you think we're heading in next?